Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
Wow.
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
Can this will all be mine?
Everything.
Everything the light touches. Rock beat.
Right about now, I like to reintroduce myself, you know? Yeah, they call me Cyrus, yeah, or you could call me, look, and I got something to say. Oh Lord, these scriptures you got coming out, these vocal cords deserves applause, 5 stars, Grammy awards, but boss, yeah, let's be clear, this is war. I'm not a rapper, I'm more and more rebel with cause, with way of words I praise more than 4 whores and 4 walls. And when in calls with nothing but scriptures and sweaty paws, dripping that's at the core. We'll pray a temper restores if this nigga go raw. I'm rawer than Colombian cooked out bodega stars. I'm Bruce Lee's fly kicks in physical form. I'm literally smoking bomb, I'm lyrically Vietnam. This king shit I be on, spiritually enforced. Inside gates with the sun, reconnect with the source. The sun, moon, the stars, and roll with the force. And grip on my balls while spitting lyrical swords like a motherfucking, yeah, life of a, yeah, words of a, filling up right now, motherfucking, yeah, words of a, yeah, life of a, yeah. My premonitions I could talk, blurry visions from project calls. Did it for the soldiers trying to find peace in the war. Of beauties but the beholder, this trap house is Taj Mahal. Jumping under the box, these niggas is jacking off. Hating on us like Sterling, all we wanna do is ball. While gagging high as hell, watching your girlfriend spend this fall. They tell the sky's the limit, bitch, we're trying to pass the stars. Come back in fancy cars like, yo, we made it. Get the children hope, watch them women witness greatness. Nail heads out, no college education, just a little devil pie. Holy Spirit dedication is just a little bit of history in the making. Grinded all summer, the winner's eyes for the taking. No sleep soon, I heard the hood been waiting. Cause that's what they do when they recognize the greatness of a motherfucking, words of a, life of a, yeah. Filling up right now, motherfucking, yeah, words of a, yeah, life of a, yeah.
Young king, I'm a young king, I'm a young king. I rule the world and everything in it. I'm a young king, I'm a young king, I'm a young king. I rule the world and everything in it.
Peace, everybody. I just want to do this quick video. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about rights of indigenous people, and they were talking about how they spoke with the mayor of Providence, or Elorza, or whatever his name is, and they were talking about renovating, abandoned houses for homeless people and stuff like that. And what she told me was that the mayor said they wouldn't be able to do that because they can't get in contact with the owners, so the people who allegedly own this property. And so I wanted to read this article. It's called A Message from Narragansett Warrior. And it says, crime would go down if poverty went away. It is a known fact that this area, known as Rhode Island, in fact belonged to the Aboriginal people. The most prominent political body here was the Narragansett, or the Narragansett. Due to European colonization, this area fell to poverty. Tribes were broken up, many people were murdered, many tribesmen were stripped of their heritage and culture. Most people in Rhode Island, in quotation marks, today are by blood part of the Aboriginal bloodlines. Due to what is known as slavery, in the era where history was rewritten from about 1865 to 1900s, documents were purposely altered and burned so that the so-called black people here would never be able to find out that they were in fact not black, but Aboriginal and Indigenous Narragansett Moors, or any of the many tribes that domiciled in this area and agreed to be part of the dominated Narragansett political division. While the European colonists were acting out their doctrine of discovery, in other words, stealing our lands, there were many Aboriginal Moors, such as the Pequot, who separated from the main political body and joined forces with the Europeans in order to get some type of political gain off of the great Narragansett political structure. In a turn of events, the Europeans also turned on the Pequot Moors and took their lands as well. This is just a brief overview of some of the events that have taken place here. Although many historians may claim that the settlers purchased lands, it is a known fact that land being inherited by the Aboriginals cannot be sold or transferred, but merely rented. There was never a transfer of a allodial title of ownership from any Aboriginal person, either the Narragansett Moors, Pequot Moors, Wampanoag Moors, or any other political group of Moors, to any European settlers. If one is to read any book on the history of Rhode Island, it is clear that Rhode Island is a European colony and not the land. This territory belongs to the Aboriginal and Indigenous Narragansett Moors. Many lies have been told to us, and this land is not India, therefore we must not be Indian. It can be proven linguistically that the words America, Olmec, Sagamore, which is an Aboriginal chief, and Moor share the same root word. Therefore, they are the same word. Therefore, we are Native American Moors, not Native American Indians. The name Indian was placed on us so we would never be able to claim the land at our very feet. An Indian can only claim land in India. This land, North America, is not India. The records may show that a deed of trust was transferred to the settlers, but a deed of trust is not an allodial title. Therefore, the Europeans have no true possession of this land. Only through distorted history had they been able to successfully perpetrate their futile acts of conversion. When it comes to any one of us asking for these abandoned homes to be renovated, so that the homeless indigenous people have a place off the streets to call home, there is no excuse that the owners could not be contacted. We, the Aboriginal and Indigenous Narragansett Moors, are the owners, ipso facto and ipso jure. Regardless of the status of the individuals on the streets, if they are not conscious of their Aboriginal bloodline, it matters not. They are ipso jure and ipso facto Moorish subjects. Therefore, if any one Aboriginal person speaks up on their behalf with imperium, then legitime imperante perere necessite est. One who commands lawfully must be obeyed. In my culture, we are taught that all living things are bound by cords to every other living thing. And as long as there is one homeless indigenous person, then we are all homeless. Now, I also wanted to share this map. This map that I found in a book when I was in the library. I'm gonna stop it and then turn the camera around. So here's the map. All of this would be considered the Narragansett lands or the Narragansett territory. And this little area right here, this little tiny little speck, is Providence. Now you can clearly tell, all these little areas, they have the Aboriginal names of the tribes that, that control those areas or domiciled in those areas. And here's the island of Quidnick that they renamed Rhode Island. and then they just took that and just called all of this Rhode Island. And there's the source from the book that I got it in from the library. And here's a map that is in my book. The Narragansett controlled all of that. It was called the Narragansett Empire. Right? And all the Europeans did was they divided it up. But that little colony right there, this little area, is where the Narragansett allowed the Europeans to be. And then they just took over. You see what I'm saying? Now they call from this line up Providence County. You see what I'm saying? And it's really not. There's the Aboriginal name right there. You see? And then they try to say that all of these people, the Narragansett, they did have various tribes, but, we'll just call this all the Narragansetts, right? They try to say all of these people, and in the so-called Massachusetts territory and the Connecticut territory, all of these people, right? Now they're all on this one little reservation right here. They try to say, smallpox, they killed a bunch of people with smallpox, and then they also try to say that this little colony. I also wanted to talk about Noble Ali, because in this book right here, The Cultures of Native North Americans, it calls the Native Americans Asiatics, right? And then Noble Ali said, "Come all ye Asiatics of North America, and hear the truth and the divine truth about your nationality and birthright. Know that you're not Negroes, black, colored, or Ethiopians." And then this so-called Indian is wearing a fez. So since the Indians, so-called Indians, are called Asiatics, and those who are blacks are called Asiatics, and they're really Moors, and this so-called Indian is wearing a fez, and Noble Ali told us Moors wear fezzes, what does that tell you? And then Noble Ali brought us to Circle 7. Right? And again, we got so-called Indians wearing a white fez. And we know Moorish American women, their fez is white. White represents purity. Right? And then again, we got the 7 drums. And I wanted to make that connection between the so-called blacks and so-called Indians being Moors, because it's very important that we know that the rights of indigenous people applies to us. And here's the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and it was adopted. And under their definitions, in this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans, as well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and cultures from which they've been torn. So that means so-called black people. If you still believe in that slavery thing, and you think that you were brought over here by Europeans, then you're an indigenous person. And all the Americans, like the Brazilians, the Cubans, the Mexicans, the Chileans, the Guatemalans, the Haitians, the so-called Dominicans, the Nicaraguans, the Trinidadians, blah, 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 all those Americans, they recognize you as an indigenous person, so this applies to you. So the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People applies to you. So let's see what it says about, homes and stuff like that. And I wrote a little bit of notes in it, just to keep myself on track a little bit. Because I like to go off on a tangent sometimes. All right. So we'll talk about, fixing these homes, right? Article 20. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of substance and development, and to engage freely in their traditional and other economic activities. Indigenous people deprived of their means of substance and development are entitled to just and fair redress. Indigenous people have the right without discrimination to the improvement of their economic and social conditions, including, amongst other things, in the areas of education, employment, vocational training and retraining, housing, sanitation, health, and social security. States shall take effective measures and, where possible, appropriate measures, where appropriate, special measures to ensure continuing improvement of their economic and social conditions, etc. So I had to shoot the rest of the video inside because my camera kept like freezing up because it's cold outside. But I wanted to make that connection because, you know, in the article it said our people have the right to vocational training. So that means the state has to establish systems for us to learn how to do construction. You know what I'm saying? So we can go out and fix these communities. You know what I'm saying? And it said, you know, take measures and then where appropriate, special measures, meaning fund these things. You know what I'm saying? Because due to colonization, you know, they forced us into these projects, these ghettos and these reservations, and they've been destroying our communities, as you can tell. So it's only right that they help fix it. You know what I'm saying? And it's only right that we go through the proper training and we get the proper knowledge to also help fix it. You know, because, you know, based on history, there's been a lot of sellouts. You know, there's like, you know, when the Pequot, and I'm not just pointing fingers, you know, when they separated from the body, that's a sellout. And again, even with, once the Narragansetts start calling themselves Indians, that's a sellout. And if you do the history, the Joint Memorandum of Understanding, you know, since states can't enter into treaties, the Joint Memorandum is a commercial agreement where the Narragansetts agreed that they would get, well, the Narragansett Indians, not the true Narragansett, you know what I'm saying? The sellout Indians told them that, you know, yeah, we'll agree that your laws apply to us if we get this little bit of land. So as long as we get a piece of the cut, then, you know, we'll agree and we'll act like your legitimate government. So, you know, sellout is everywhere. You know, Noble Drew Ali said, "Be careful, Moors. Some wearing turbans and feathers will sell you back into slavery." So some claiming that they're for the people, they got the feathers, and they look like Indians. You know, they'll sell you out too. You know, but you know, a lot of these places, like that whole strip that you know, I'll attach a video. The whole strip that I was sitting in, there's like 3 blocks of just abandoned houses. You know what I mean? And near the houses, there's a plot of land. You know, you can grow food there. So it could be a community garden where a bunch of indigenous people move in there, so-called blacks, so-called Indians, move in there, so-called Hispanics, so-called Latinos, they're all Moors, move in there, and then they grow their own food, so they don't got to worry about nothing. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of these sellouts don't want that to happen because then they lose money. You see what I'm saying? But again, hereditaments can't be sold. You know what I'm saying? So you won't have to pay nobody rent to live there. And then again, Rights of Indigenous People says we have the right to our land and resources back. So we ain't got to pay nobody no heat, no electricity, no sewage bill, no nothing. What we talking about? We got to pay you for something that's already ours. Get out of here. So again, you know, that's the type of power that we have, but it's not well known. So when, you know, someone who's asking a legitimate question like, what are we going to do about these abandoned houses? You know, since we already know the mayor, the governor, all these people in high political positions, we already know that they're Masons, so they know the history. They know they have the knowledge anyway. You know, they can just tell someone who don't know. Well, we don't know who the owners are. You know who the owners are. Stop playing. It's the people. You see what I'm saying? So I wanted to kind of shed light on that, and I'll also post videos of other abandoned places around the Narragansett territory that they keep calling Providence, Rhode Island, and there's a bunch of just houses and then plots of land. So literally, you could put the people in there, and then they can grow their own food and not be in poverty no more. But there's no money involved if the quality of life goes up. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why in the article it says, you know, crime would go away is because that mismanagement of energy comes out as violence. Once that energy is managed, meaning, you know, are people going to these classes to learn how to fix abandoned houses, their energy will be going to something else. You know what I'm saying? And this problem will be fixed by the people. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like there would be no violence if there was a goal. You know what I mean? Right now, is these Europeans are benefiting off of us being in poverty, and they're targeting our lower selves, so we keep targeting our own lower selves, you know what I mean? So we don't produce anything higher than that. So that's why all this violence is coming out. When there's a way out of this. you know, and Obama signed, you know, the rights of indigenous people, making the United States Corporation Company obligated to it Therefore, the state of Rhode Island, state of New York, state of New Hampshire, state of New Jersey, state of whatever, their governor and, their colonial governor and their colonial mayor, they're obligated to it as long as we enforce it. But if we don't enforce it, then the whole, well, we don't know who the owners are excuse is going to keep popping up. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, in order to change the people, we got to change their literature. We got to fix the mentality of our people, which is very interesting. But yeah, if you want that article that I read or any of these maps or whatever, just put your email address in the comment or whatever, and I'll send it to you. Because I would like for this problem to get fixed. I don't like having family members who are homeless. I don't like having family members not be able to see their children because of what the so-called state said. You know what I mean? And having to work for someone else who has no allegiance to our people to pay off some bills that don't really exist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a low voltage technician, so I know to install, like, wires, crimping, splicing, install Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not trying to provide that service to no Europeans anymore. You know what I mean? I'd rather do it like, our people will set up this business. I know how to do low voltage. Let me run these wires for the community. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm about. But yeah, there's, I'm trying to stay on topic, but there's just so, like, this expands so far and it touches so many topics. You know what I mean? So it's just wild. Like, literally, you'll see I'll attach the video. There's rows and rows of just abandoned houses. I'm not sure if I'm going to attach it in the beginning or the end of the video, but you're going to see it. There's just rows and rows just sitting there. And it says private property. Who owns it? And if you do own it, you ain't making no money off of it. You see what I'm saying? Because there's no one living in it. It's just sitting there. When, the quality of life could just be so much better for people. And crime will just go away. Because we'll be busy doing other stuff, like, I don't know, growing food in our garden. We won't got time. Like, I don't really care about what that person's talking about. I got a nice house. I can pass it down to my children. They don't got to worry about paying nobody to live there. I got food right here. I'm not going hungry. I'll work for this place just to get finance to do other stuff. I don't got to worry about bills, no nothing. Like, that's, people keep talking about reparations. You got to repair a nation. The Moorish nation is the one that got destroyed. Black's not a nation. Indians is someone else's nation. So if you're going to claim reparations, you got to claim your nation. Because the word reparation means to repair a nation. You see what I'm saying? So that reparations and that whole 40 acres and a mule, that's the rights of indigenous people. These abandoned houses and these homeless people who are also indigenous people, you see the connection? Do I got to spell it out for you? It's wild, man. This situation that our people are in is crazy. Crazy meaning the actual legitimate definition of crazy, broken and weak. It's sad. But, yeah, I had to switch the video. I don't know if I said this. I'm probably repeating myself. I had to redo videos because my camera kept messing up because it was so cold outside. And I got an iPhone 5 and it's garbage. So, but yeah, I just wanted to put, shed light on that. On the fact that there's just rows of abandoned houses and there's people struggling to live. Like, that just don't make sense to me. And I'm just one person, so the more people that get this information, see the video, read the rights of indigenous people, definitely read it. Hopefully you'll see the same thing I see and the way to fix this stuff. Also, a little tidbit. These so-called mayors, so-called governors, they'll say, there's no money for that. Well, 1933, Federal Reserve Act, they got rid of all the gold and silver, and now it's just paper, so you can print as much paper as you want. So print all that paper to increase the quality of life, and crime will go down. You see what I'm saying? Don't be fooled by these people trying to say, there's no money and there's no jobs. Okay, well, since you can create the paper, that means you can create the jobs. So print enough paper so that you can give enough people to go to vocational training to learn how to do construction and build houses, and you just created jobs. But again, these Europeans, these sellout Moors who think that who claim to be Indian and claim to be black, they don't benefit if they talk like that. they don't get that paper if they talk like that. You know what I mean? But there's real issues. There's real people starving out there. There's real people living on the streets. I got family members who don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, and my family can only do so much. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's sad. It sucks. It's crazy. It's wild. I'm gonna end this video now because I feel like I'm rambling. But again, if you want that article and you want these pictures, let me know.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom. A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
And this will all be mine?
Everything.
Everything the light touches. Rock beam.